everyone. Folks are just trickling in. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I don't think we have anybody else in the waiting room. Hello, hello. We had a number of people signed up for this info session today, so we're just going to give people a minute to join. We'll start a little slower, and then we'll go into all the details of the program. So welcome again. It's good to see, good to see a couple of familiar names in the list. Very nice. I think what I'll do, just so you know that I'm the one who's talking, why don't I spotlight myself, and I'll also spotlight Jimena, so you know who we are. Can I do that too? Add spotlight. Yes, there we go. Excellent. Okay, so we're just a minute past noon, so why don't we get going again slowly just to let other people join. My name is Stephanie Draker, and I am the Associate Director with Work and Culture, and I'll be leading this info session today with my colleague Jimena from Toronto Arts Foundation. And you are here today joining us to learn more about the project host eligibility for the ArtWorksTO Newcomer Program. So again, that is specifically for the project host application process and eligibility for this program. If you are an artist looking to learn more about this program, unfortunately, the deadline for that application process has passed, but you could go to the Toronto Arts Foundation website to learn more information about when the next intake for that will open. So again, this is just for people who are interested in knowing more about the project host component of this program. Let's advance the slide. There we go. Moving right along. So just a few housekeeping notes for everyone. There are closed captioning available if you'd like to follow along, either through Zoom, or you might see at the top right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little drop-down menu that says Otter, and that is a live transcript that you can follow along in a separate browser if you choose. We are recording the information part of the session today, but we'll close things off when we get to the Q&A, just so if you have any other questions, you know, those won't be publicly shared after the fact. Speaking of questions, we do have a lot of content to cover today, so we would ask that you hold any questions to the end of today's session. If something does come up as we're talking through things and you just want to make sure that you get it down so you remember, feel free to type it into the chat, and my colleague Justine, who's on the call as well, can take note of that. We'll revisit that once we get to the Q&A period. Full program details for project hosts can be found on our website, the Work and Culture website, and Justine can pop a link into the chat to that. It's also available in these slides. And if you have any additional questions as you're going through the application process and trying to figure out what might be a good fit, you can always contact me, and my email is there as well. And in terms of what we're going to be covering today, again, a reminder for anyone who just joined us, this session is geared towards the project host intake, not the artist application process. So what we're going to be covering today are the program structure and key timelines that hosts should keep in mind, the project host eligibility, the project host role and expectations for the program, the host application process and matching process, and then we'll move into additional questions and answers if there's anything that we need to clarify. But again, if you are an artist who has joined and are looking to learn information about how to participate, you can visit the Toronto Arts Foundation website for more info. And a little bit more about us. So I introduced myself earlier, but just again, my name is Stephanie Draker. I'm the Associate Director with Work and Culture. I'm also joined today by my colleague, Justine Santiago, who is going to be taking care of tech support. All the better that it's her and not me. And I'm also joined today by Jimena Bercochea, who is ArtWorksTO's Newcomer Program Lead with Toronto Arts Foundation. And we're going to be hearing a bit more from Jimena in a moment, but we work very closely together on this program. So Work and Culture is taking the lead on the employer engagement or the project host engagement and support. And then Jimena and her colleagues are overseeing a number of the artist aspects of the program. So the selection, and then also ultimately managing the relationships between the project hosts and artists once they are matched. And for those of you who are perhaps new to our organizations, new to work and culture, for instance, we are a nonprofit art service organization that has been serving the cultural sector since 1998. So it's been a number of decades. Our mission is to support the career advancement of artists, creatives, and cultural workers from diverse lived experiences, as well as support the organizations that engage them. And we do that through entrepreneurial and business skills development and research. So we don't do anything around creative practice, but we do have a long history of working with like-minded organizations like Toronto Arts Foundation. And in fact, we've increasingly found ourselves serving as a bridge between newcomer artists and arts employers across the province. So this opportunity to work in partnership with Toronto Arts Foundation to continue to identify and kind of break down those barriers to employment for newcomers and deliver programming to help support that career development is well aligned, obviously, and super relevant. And at this point now, I'm going to turn things over to Jimena to walk us through a few slides to give you a stronger background on the program itself. So over to you, Jimena.
Thank you, Steph, and thank you everyone for your interest in the program. So I want to start by telling you a bit about the Neighborhood Arts Network, or NAN. NAN is a citywide network that supports artists working with diverse communities across Toronto, and specifically for newcomer artists. NAN has been there for many years now through awards, mentorship, workforce development, and in general for community and industry connections. And now with the ArtWorksTO Newcomer Program, that work is expanding into one focused initiative, not just here in Toronto, but across the whole Greater Toronto area. So let me tell you a little bit more about how the program works. Could you pass to the next slide, Steph? Thank you. So the Newcomer Program is part of a bigger non-initiative called ArtWorksTO. And ArtWorksTO is a workforce development initiative with 3 programs: the youth, the indigenous, and the newcomer. So all 3 programs share like the same general structure, but of course they each have their own differences depending on the artists they support and the specific needs of those communities, whether that's youth, indigenous, or newcomer artists. And this is the 2nd year of the Newcomer Program. We are supporting, again, 25 newcomer artists from the GTA working either in media arts or arts education. And regarding the project development with their project host, which is one of the components of our program, this is a mutually enriching process. The artist gets a real hands-on experience and support, and the organizations benefit as well, of course, because they get to work with creative people who bring like a fresh perspective, diverse cultural backgrounds, and new ways of thinking into their work. The next slide, Steph. The program, specifically the Newcomer Program, is divided into 2 streams based on the focus of each artist's practice. The organizations as project hosts may submit to one of the streams or to both streams if they want to. And stream 1 is for media artists, and the project development, which is 3 months long, will start in January 2027. Steph will get more in detail on that. And both streams are for artists whose careers have already moved past the early stages, whether that's in their home countries or here in Canada, but who might still be facing barriers to fully establish themselves in the Canadian arts landscape. The program is open to anyone 18 and up, so we end up with a real mix of artists, some younger folks who, like I said, aren't emerging artists anymore, and others with, 10, 15 or more years of experience with really amazing trajectories. So just so it's clear what we mean by media arts, we're talking about things like graphic design, photography, user experience and user interface design, digital illustration, animation, film, sound art, and interactive or web-based media. The applications that we select have a very strong portfolio that shows they have solid technical skills, a clear artistic voice, and their own unique way of making work. And we also look for public exposure. So they should have, the artists that we select, they should have shown their work at least 3 times somewhere. Could be a screening, a festival, a digital exhibition, whatever makes sense for their field. Then we have Stream 2 for arts educators. From the 3 programs, this is the only program that has this stream, and it has been really great. The arts educators will start their project in April 2027. And this stream is very different from Stream 1. It's open to artists from any discipline. It could be music, dance, performance, visual arts, etc. As long as the artist has experience teaching or leading arts education programs, they can be part of this stream. And their experience could be either at schools, universities, museums, libraries, community centers, or other settings. And this experience obviously could be back in their home, in their country of origin, or here in Canada. And we also select participants who have an active artistic practice, a portfolio, and some history of public exhibition or showcases, because this stream is really for artists who are both creators and educators. So overall, both streams are for newcomer artists who are already working in their field, but who still need this extra push to take the next step professionally here in Canada. And that's exactly where this program and our project host come in. The next slide, Steph, thank you. So here is some context. Canada is expecting around 2.4 million new immigrants to join the workforce between 2022 and 2031. And over 70% of new jobs will require post-secondary education or management skills. And this is a number that keeps growing. So what this tells us is newcomer artists need more than just talent. They need training, support, and real opportunities to build the skills they need for Canada's job market. And that is exactly what our program responds to. Workforce development that helps newcomer artists access meaningful career opportunities and make a real contribution, not just for the art sector, but to other industries and their communities too. So the next slide, Esther. And so the program has 3 key levels of support. First, training. So all 25 artists across both streams start off taking Introduction to Design Thinking together at OCAD University. And then each stream has its own second course, and this one is a micro-credential. Stream 1, the media artists, will take social enterprise, and Stream 2, the arts educators, will take teaching art. And on top of that, everyone will complete one elective course, which they can take at any time during the program. Then the second level of support is mentorship. Every participant is matched with a mentor who gives them one-on-one and group guidance, and they are supporting their professional growth throughout the program. And third, we have project development and paid work placement. This is where you could come as a project host. And participants gain hands-on experience by working on projects proposed by organizations, and the participants can apply to up to 3 projects, and then a committee matches them to the best fit. And the first 2 components of the program, the training and the mentorship, are really designed to directly support their success in these placements. And this is it for me, so I pass it to Steph.
Great. Thank you, Jimena. So you can really see how thoughtfully designed the program is, because it's more about just providing a paid opportunity, which obviously is extremely valuable, but it's already also helping set up that really strong foundation to help those artists continue their career development outside of these kind of placements. So how do project hosts support this program, and it's a very important component of the program. As Jimena mentioned earlier, project hosts will propose a short-term project idea that the artist will bid on, and you can do that for either or both streams as applicable. If you have multiple ideas, you're welcome to submit multiple applications. The most important thing is that the projects must align with the sought after expertise. So, either you're looking for a media arts focus kind of project, or you're looking for arts education, one of each, what have you. Then the selected host organizations or project hosts will be matched to a media artist or arts educator to fulfill that short-term project idea. And the selected artist will receive $5,000 from ArtWorksTO directly to cover the direct costs related to their involvement in the project. And that accounts for things like their time, expertise, and related materials as applicable. In terms of the project eligibility, or project host eligibility, I should say, it is quite broad. Project hosts are, should be interested in engaging a creative newcomer artist and supporting their inclusion in this kind of career advancement. And we're looking for, folks who belong to arts organizations, and that could be for-profit, nonprofit, all disciplines, all sizes. Municipalities and townships can apply across all departments, libraries and other community serving organizations, and other nonprofit and for-profit organizations or companies, small and large scale businesses. We're quite open. What we're really looking for are project hosts that have, an idea that aligns with the roster of artists and are really interested in being involved in a program like this. And because I know there's a couple of familiar names on the call, and your burning question is, can previous ArtWorksTO project hosts apply? The answer is yes, providing that they meet the following considerations. You must have been matched with fewer than 3 ArtWorksTO participants consecutively or non-consecutively over the program lifespan. And if there are organizations who are applying that have been matched with 3 ArtWorksTO participants in the past, they cannot participate in this program cycle or any of the other program cycles until they have either observed a 1-year waiting period and completed one or more of the following actions. So if you have completed that 1-year waiting period and then hired an ArtWorksTO alumni, or offered a paid placement or internship position to an alumni, or offered to set up a partnership with ArtWorksTO that aligns with the mission of advancing equity, diversity, inclusion in the media and arts education industries, then you'd be open to applying if you meet all those considerations. If you are not sure, feel free to contact us and we can double check and cross-reference to see, if you are in fact eligible. And then in terms of where projects can happen, unique to this program for the ArtWorksTO overall program for newcomers is that the geographic region is expanded. So we're doing this to recognize the current settlement realities of newcomer artists who very often are trying to gain work in Toronto or closer to downtown, but the reality is many of them, find or do their settlement outside of Toronto. So we embrace the GTA regionally for this program, which is a bit unique. So host organizations can be located in the city of Toronto or the following regional municipalities. So Durham region, which includes municipalities like Ajax, Oshawa, and Pickering, Halton region, so like Burlington, Milton, and Oakville, Peel region, which includes Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon, as well as York region, which includes Aurora, Markham, Vaughan, Richmond Hill, etc. Additionally, where applicable, project hosts will also need to provide a suitable workspace, either in person or virtual, and or an accessible venue to support the work being completed. So for instance, this might be a dedicated desk or working space, if applicable, particularly for Stream 2. If you're doing arts education, a venue might be part of your consideration, or an event space. But that being said, there are opportunities for more remote arrangements depending on the artist and the matching process. And then in terms of what kind of projects are eligible, Jimena mentioned some of them earlier, but for Stream 1, for the media arts component, Each proposed project must require expertise in one of the following media arts areas. So, for instance, 3D rendering, to create models for visualization or presentations. It could be digital illustration, graphic design, photography, videography, even marketing and social media campaign development, digital, and website and user experience design are examples that qualify under media arts. And we do include some examples in our guidelines. And there are some prompts in the application form to help you think about, scope and how to quantify the value of work being done as a bit of a guide. And in terms of some other examples, Jimena put together this wonderful summary that we have on the web page, but I'll just walk through a few of them. No preference here. I just kind of picked a few at random, just enough to show favoritism. But we had some really lovely projects that came out of Stream 1 last year, including this one. This photography project by Casey was also a recipient of the Newcomer Arts Award this year, I believe, and was matched with an organization called Method Collective to document a very tightly time-based exhibition on the impact of grief that was installed in the Brickworks in Toronto. Beautiful exhibit. Armin completed a short mini documentary for an organization called Thrive Youth to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the organization. Andre was matched with Brampton Arts Organization to help them develop new marketing and social media collateral for their annual film showcase, and also support their development and fundraising efforts. And Parmeet worked closely with Lakeshore Arts in Etobicoke and their most recent cohort of their creative writing program to create complementary digital illustrations for their program zine. So those are some of the examples from the media arts stream. There are more online in the summary for you to review. And then in terms of Stream 2 for the arts education component, there's a little bit more variety here, a little bit more opportunity for either more arts-based or creative delivery or infusing arts-based creative thinking into work being done. So it could be very traditional arts-based programming or skills-based technique kind of workshops like painting lessons, dance lessons, crafting, things like that. Or it could be infusing creativity or artistic skill into other training topics. So perhaps, using narrative tools for coaching for personal growth, something like that. We've had the arts educators work on co-designing curriculum through a creative lens. And again, that could be very arts-based, or it could be, other kind of topics that would benefit from, different kind of critical thinking, creative critical thinking, problem solving, movement and expression to help relay the content. It could include community outreach opportunities, outreach engagement opportunities through participatory or socially engaged arts. For instance, we've had artists work on projects that help address local history or community identity. Or it could be something like exhibition or tour development for public engagement and audience development. For arts education, it could be for specific communities, specific regions, for all ages. It's fairly broad, but it does really depend on the artists, their interests, their skills, and where there is alignment. And in terms of some examples from the recent Stream 2 completed series, we had Alec was matched with Mocha over in the Lower Junction to develop and deliver a series of drop-in hands-on workshops featuring a variety of different mediums. Naz worked closely with Tarragon Theatre this year to develop a structured facilitation framework and curriculum guide for emerging playwrights programming for their programming. Atish was matched with Sistema Toronto to develop and deliver a series of after-school music workshops that helped connect each participant to Sistema's repertoire through instruction, as well as through a learning activity template to ground their understanding in the music cultural context. And Gurdeep here was collaborating with Helsing Gallery in Halton Hills to develop a progressive watercolor painting series aimed at increasing access to high quality arts education for seniors. So those are just a few examples. As I mentioned earlier, there are more available online. And just to note, project proposals that do not align with the skill sets on offer for our media artists and arts educators are not eligible. The projects must strictly adhere to the proposed outcomes and activities as well. So as you're putting together your application, note that you cannot add additional or unrelated duties, responsibilities, or tasks. This is really about the creative output of the artists. And as Jimena mentioned earlier, the program does tend to attract artists at all career levels. So we can expect a range of artists in the program that are on that kind of other side of the emerging process. They do have formal exhibition and professional experience, as well as really established artists. But the core is that they're all looking for opportunities to better engage and become cemented in the Canadian landscape. And then in terms of when a project can happen, so now there's no minimum number of days required for the project. Depending on the scope of work, something might get completed in just a number of days. However, project hosts must ensure that they are proposing a project within a manageable timeline that can be completed within 3 months. So that hopefully will help you with some of your scoping and scaling of what you might propose. For the Stream 1 Media Arts, they will have up to 3 months to complete their projects between January 11th to April 12th, 2027. For the arts education stream, they'll have up to 3 months to complete their projects anytime between April 5th to July 5th, 2027. So a project can start within that period, but must end by that end date. Project hosts will also need to be mindful that the selected artists will be engaged in those other mentorship and learning activities. They shouldn't impact the timing of their projects too much, but just to note that that's something else that they're also balancing, in case there might need to be adjustments to allow participation in those activities. And then in terms of what direct costs are covered, the media artists and arts educators selected as participants in this program will each receive $5,000 directly to compensate for their time, expertise, and any materials directly related to their involvement in the program. So for instance, a videographer working on a project to capture a series of community interviews, might have their time, travel, equipment rentals, software costs, and et cetera, covered up to that for that amount. For arts educators, a visual artist specializing in teaching youth how to create collages with a variety of materials might have their workshop planning and teaching time, travel, and related workshop material costs covered by that amount. And just to note, for any project proposals that exceed that $5,000 amount covered by ArtWorksTO, the project host will be expected to cover any additional costs or adjust their project activities to fit within that ceiling. So for instance, the host, as a project host, you might propose a project that involves delivering 6 creative writing workshops, but that $5,000 amount from ArtWorksTO will only compensate the artist educator to provide 5 workshops. So you can either decide as the project host to either cover the costs with, associated with providing that additional workshop, or you adjust your project to deliver 5 workshops instead of 6. So we do walk through that process with potential project hosts and the artist during the matching process, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And then in terms of indirect costs, the project hosts need to cover any indirect costs related to hosting the participant and administering their project. So something else to keep in mind as you're putting together this proposal and making sure that you have the bandwidth, the capacity to deliver it. So that includes, your staff time for onboarding and supervising the artist, any related administrative and equipment costs to support and monitor the newcomer artist if applicable. It could include providing appropriate workspace or venue space as applicable. So for instance, we mentioned earlier, if we need a temporary desk space or a venue space for a workshop series. You're also responsible for any overhead costs associated with the project. So, your costs for office or facility utilities, rent payments, et cetera, and also responsible for any costs associated with communicating the final outcomes of the project. So you may have noticed in some of the earlier examples that, many of our project hosts celebrated their project by doing social media campaigns and capturing some of the work that was being done. So that would also be a indirect cost that you might consider. And then in terms of how to apply, Applications are open now. There is an online form that you can fill out. It's available on our website. And as mentioned earlier, you can submit multiple applications or multiple project ideas to one or both project streams. And I don't think there's any limit to how many applications you can submit, Jimena. That's correct. But we should note that, I mean, you heard earlier, we have 25 amazing artists that are selected for these programs. And generally, the applications from project hosts outnumber the number of artists that we have. So just something to keep in mind that, very often we're not able to award more than one artist to an organization unless it's a really great fit. So just keep that in mind. And then in terms of how applications are assessed, they are reviewed by a committee of the program partners who assess the proposed project for alignment with the artists and learning goals. Projects also must provide a meaningful and creative hands-on experience that contributes to the artist's professional growth in Canada and either leverages their media art skills or the arts education skills. We're also measuring the applications against things like organizational goals. So we're looking to see that the application explains how the proposed work will help the organization achieve a clear and impactful goal themselves. We're looking at the project plan, so whether or not the project host has laid out a clear and reasonable plan for the project, including an appropriate timeline and project scope and scale to achieve the goals. And then we're also looking at the project deliverables and outcomes. So that is the number of anticipated deliverables and outcomes and whether they are reasonable and appropriate for the project and what you aim to achieve against the proposed $5,000 budget that is provided by ArtWorksTO to the artist. But I will say, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to kind of scale and scope that out when you're not quite sure what the artists might, how the artist might interpret it. So if as part of the assessment, we determine that the project value might exceed that $5,000 amount provided by ArtWorksTO, we do reach out to the project host to clarify, how additional costs might be covered or scope things so that it fits more appropriately. And then in terms of when you'll hear about the results, we will be closing the application process by September 8th. And then we aim to contact all of the successful project hosts by the week of November 30th to move them on to the matching process with the identified artist. And then following a successful match, if all goes well, if everybody's clear and in agreement about the match, they would enter into a formal contract in early December 2026. That's for the media arts. For the arts education component, successful project hosts will be contacted during the week of January 25th, 2027 to move on to the matching process. And similarly, following a successful match, the project host will enter into an agreement with the artist in late February 2027. So something else to also keep in mind as you're putting together your project timeline. And then there are some evaluation components related to this program. You saw the long list of funders at the bottom of the first page, and we are accountable to them. So the ArtWorksTO program lead will be working with a third-party evaluation company to collect feedback from both the artists and the project host throughout the program. So you can expect to complete surveys, and in some cases, just to really, get the context and measure the impact of the relationship, we may conduct additional interviews, gather case studies, et cetera, so that we understand, your experience working in the program, and also, weigh it against what might be improved for subsequent programs. And that is the overview of the program and what you can expect. And I've talked a lot. So at this point, I'm going to move things over to questions from those in the group. And at this point, I'll ask Justine, if you don't mind, we can turn off the recording at this point.